The coffee in Admiral James Thompson's cup had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on the massive holographic display that dominated the Earth Defense Forces Command Center. The blue dots representing Earth's defensive fleet looked pathetically small compared to the swarm of red markers approaching from deep space. Each of those red dots represented an alien warship bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, they're broadcasting again," announced Tom Parker, the young communications officer. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. Everyone in the command center knew what was coming. It would be the third transmission today from the alien fleet. Thompson nodded wearily. "Put them through." The holographic display flickered, and a deep, rumbling voice filled the room. The aliens never showed themselves in their transmissions, preferring to use an audio-only format that made their words sound like they came from the depths of an ancient cave. "Primitive humans," the voice began, dripping with contempt. "Your time grows short. You have exactly 48 of your Earth hours to surrender. The Stellar Empire does not bargain with lesser species. Resistance will result in your complete annihilation." Thompson's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. The same message, just with a different countdown each time. He looked around the room at the faces of his crew, some scared, some angry, all determined. Earth had tried everything to avoid this confrontation. The diplomatic team had spent weeks attempting to negotiate. They'd offered trade deals, cultural exchanges, even shared technology. The Stellar Empire had dismissed it all, calling human achievements barely more advanced than throwing rocks. Their ships had appeared without warning 3 weeks ago, positioning themselves just beyond Mars' orbit. "Any response from the Chinese fleet?" Thompson asked, turning to his second-in-command, Robert Miller. Miller shook his head. "The Asian Alliance ships are in position, but their weapons can't penetrate the alien shields either. The Russians tried a new type of plasma cannon an hour ago. Didn't even make a scratch." Thompson walked to the window, staring out at the early morning sky above Washington, D.C. Somewhere up there, humanity's combined space fleet was preparing for what might be their last battle. They had gathered every ship from every nation. American, European, Chinese, Russian, Indian, all united for the first time in history against a common threat. "Sir," Parker's voice cut through the tense silence, "we're picking up movement from their fleet." The holographic display showed 5 large ships breaking away from the main alien fleet. They were heading straight for the moon base, humanity's newest and proudest achievement in space exploration. "They're going to make an example of it," Miller said quietly. "Show us what happens to those who resist." Thompson's jaw clenched. The moon base housed over 300 civilians, scientists, engineers, and support staff. They had already tried to evacuate, but the aliens had blocked all escape attempts. The command center fell silent as they watched the 5 alien ships approach the moon base. Their weapons charged, glowing an ominous purple that was visible even through the holographic display. "Launch everything we have in range," Thompson ordered, knowing it would make no difference. Earth's ships rushed to intercept, but they were too far away. The alien vessels fired. The moon base's shields, humanity's best defensive technology, held for exactly 2.3 seconds before failing completely. The base didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized so thoroughly that not even debris remained. 300 lives gone in an instant. "Message from the President," Parker announced, his voice hollow. "She's calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council." Thompson finally set down his cold coffee. "Tell her I'm on my way. And get me every weapons specialist we have. I don't care if they're retired, in prison, or living in a cave. I want every person who's ever had a crazy idea about how to blow things up in my office by sunrise." As he left the command center, Thompson glanced one last time at the holographic display. 47 hours and counting. Sometimes the most desperate situations call for the craziest solutions, and right now, humanity needed crazy more than ever. He just hoped someone somewhere had an idea crazy enough to save them all. The emergency meeting room buzzed with exhausted voices as military leaders from around the world argued about Earth's next move. Admiral Thompson sat quietly, watching presentation after presentation of failed weapon designs. The clock on the wall showed they had 41 hours left before the aliens' deadline. "Our best nuclear weapons can't even scratch their shields," a general from Russia complained, tossing his papers onto the table. "Even our experimental quantum torpedoes failed." Thompson rubbed his tired eyes, wondering if he'd ever sleep again. That's when he noticed Lieutenant Mike Rogers in the corner, fidgeting with something in his hands. Rogers wasn't supposed to be here. This meeting was for senior staff only. But Thompson remembered asking for anyone with crazy ideas, and Rogers was known for those. "Lieutenant," Thompson called out, making everyone turn to look at the young officer. "You've been quiet. Got something to share?" Rogers stood up, his face red from all the attention. In his hands was a small yellow rubber duck, the kind children played with in bathtubs. Several people laughed, but Thompson noticed Rogers wasn't smiling. "Sir," Rogers began, his voice shaking slightly, "we've been thinking about this all wrong. We keep trying to beat their advanced technology with our advanced technology. But what if we went the other way?" Thompson leaned forward. "Explain." Rogers walked to the front of the room, still holding his rubber duck. "Their shields and sensors are calibrated for high-tech weapons, lasers, plasma, nuclear energy. But what about something so low-tech it's practically ancient?" He squeezed the duck, making it squeak. Nobody laughed this time. "We fill these with simple gunpowder, not the modern stuff. The old Chinese recipe from 1,000 years ago. Add a mechanical timer, maybe some basic metal bearings. Their sensors are looking for energy signatures, radiation, heat. They're not looking for rubber ducks." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then someone snorted. "You want to attack the most advanced alien fleet in the galaxy with bath toys?" "Yes," Rogers said firmly. "Their arrogance is their weakness. They think we're primitive, so they're watching for primitive weapons too. But what about something so stupid they wouldn't even consider it a weapon?" Thompson stood up and took the rubber duck from Rogers, turning it over in his hands. "How many would we need?" "Millions," Rogers replied. "We fill them with simple explosives, launch them in waves. They'll look like space junk on their sensors. The duck's shape lets them stick to surfaces. They already have suction cups on the bottom. Once they're attached to the alien ships, the shields won't stop them because they're already through." Thompson finished, starting to grin. "The explosions would be inside their defensive perimeter." "This is insane," someone protested. "We can't bet Earth's survival on rubber ducks." Thompson looked at the clock again. 40 hours left. He thought about the moon base, about how the aliens had dismissed every human attempt at peace. Maybe insane was exactly what they needed. "How fast can we make them?" he asked Rogers. "Every toy factory on Earth working together. Maybe 36 hours for the first wave. They're simple, just hollow rubber, gunpowder, and mechanical timers. No electronics for them to detect." Thompson turned to face the room of stunned military leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, does anyone have a better idea?" Silence answered him. He nodded to Rogers. "Lieutenant, congratulations. You're now in charge of Operation Rubber Duck. I want every toy factory, every rubber manufacturer, every worker we can find. And get me designs for a delivery system. We need to launch these things by the millions." As people started rushing out to begin the preparations, Thompson heard someone mutter, "We're going to fight an alien invasion with squeaky toys. We've officially lost our minds." Maybe they had, but Thompson looked at the rubber duck in his hand and smiled. Sometimes the craziest ideas worked precisely because they were crazy. And if they were going to die anyway, they might as well make history as the species that fought back with the dumbest weapon ever created. The world's largest toy factory in China had never seen anything like this. Where children's laughter usually filled the air during product testing, now grim-faced military personnel rushed back and forth between production lines. Lieutenant Rogers walked through the facility, checking each station where workers assembled what the soldiers had started calling doomed ducks. "How many so far?" Thompson asked over the video call, his face showing on Rogers' tablet. 2 million completed in China. Another million in India. Europe and America are at about 3 million combined. Rogers ducked as a forklift loaded with crates of rubber ducks passed by. The simple design helps. We're actually ahead of schedule. The aliens have been broadcasting hourly updates, each message more condescending than the last. Their latest transmission had mocked humanity's apparent lack of preparation, noting that their sensors detected no major weapons being readied. Of course they didn't. They were looking for energy signatures, not rubber and gunpowder. In the factory's testing area, Rogers watched as technicians checked the mechanical timers. They had to be perfect, old-fashioned clockwork mechanisms that would trigger the equally old-fashioned gunpowder. The explosion from one duck wouldn't do much damage, but millions detonating at once, directly against the ship's hulls. That was a different story. More messages from the aliens, sir, a communications officer reported. Well, they're laughing at us now. The alien transmission played throughout the factory. Your pitiful species appears to have accepted its fate. We detect no meaningful defensive preparations. Perhaps you have finally recognized your proper place in the galaxy, beneath our feet. Rogers smiled. Every insult, every arrogant message just proved their plan might work. The aliens were so convinced of their superiority that they weren't really looking for threats anymore. In the loading bay, workers carefully packed the ducks into simple wooden crates. Again, nothing that would register on high-tech scans. Each duck was painted black to blend with space, its usual cheerful yellow hidden under military-grade stealth coating. "Time check," Rogers asked, walking past a line of trucks waiting to transport the crates to launch sites. 22 hours until their deadline," his assistant replied. 17 hours until we need to begin deployment to reach all their ships in time. Rogers paused at a testing station where an engineer was demonstrating the duck's suction capability. The little rubber toys could stick to any surface, their simple suction cups requiring no power or complex mechanisms. In the vacuum of space, once they attached, they would stay attached. "Sir," a junior officer ran up, holding a tablet. "The aliens are doing another weapon demonstration. They're targeting one of our abandoned space stations this time." Everyone watched on nearby screens as the alien ships effortlessly destroyed the station, their energy weapons cutting through metal like paper. Their message was clear. Resistance was futile. But Rogers noticed something interesting. The debris from the space station, simple chunks of metal and plastic, passed right through the alien shields. Just as they'd hoped, the shields were only stopping active energy signatures and high-tech projectiles. "They're showing off," Rogers muttered. "Getting cocky. Good." The factory floor buzzed with renewed energy. Every worker, every soldier understood the absurd gamble they were taking. Humanity's last hope rested on rubber ducks, of all things. The history books would either call this the most brilliant strategy ever conceived or the last desperate act of a dying species. A loud squeak made Rogers turn. A worker had accidentally stepped on one of the ducks, making it release that familiar sound that had entertained children for generations. Everyone nearby laughed, a moment of light relief in their tense situation. "Keep them coming," Rogers ordered, picking up the duck and placing it back on the production line. Every duck counts. Every single one might be the difference between victory and extinction. As he watched the endless line of black rubber ducks moving down the conveyor belt, Rogers wondered what the aliens would think in those last moments when they realized they'd been defeated by bath toys. He hoped someone would record their reaction for posterity. Assuming, of course, that this crazy plan actually worked. The launch countdown echoed through Earth's Combined Fleet Command Center. Admiral Thompson watched as the first wave of ships took position. These weren't their best vessels. Those were being held back for the real distraction. These ships carried something far more important: millions of black rubber ducks, each one packed with simple gunpowder and clockwork timers. First wave ready for deployment, Rogers reported from his station. The lieutenant hadn't slept in 36 hours, but his eyes were sharp with focus. All timers are synchronized. 2 hours until detonation once launched. The alien fleet hung in space like a wall of metal, their massive ships reflecting the distant sunlight. Their latest message still played on repeat through the command center. Your time has ended. In 1 hour, we will cleanse your system of your primitive species. Begin Operation Rubber Duck, Thompson ordered, trying to keep a straight face despite the operation's ridiculous name. Launch patterns Alpha through Delta. Cargo bay doors opened across Earth's fleet. To any observer, it would look like the ships were simply dumping their garbage into space, a final act of defiance, perhaps. Millions of small black objects tumbled out in carefully planned patterns. Alien fleet is responding, the tactical officer announced. They're laughing, sir. Their communications indicate they think we're throwing trash at them in desperation. Thompson smiled. Good. Launch the second wave. Time to show them our real attack. Earth's main battle fleet moved forward, weapons charge. Every ship they had left, putting on the best show they could manage. Their weapons would be useless against the alien shields, but that wasn't the point. They just needed to be convincing enough. Enemy fleet engaging, someone called out. Their shields are at maximum power, energy weapons charging. The alien ships opened fire, their advanced weapons cutting through space. Earth's fleet scattered in practiced maneuvers, making it look like they were trying to find weaknesses in the alien formation. Meanwhile, clouds of black rubber ducks drifted closer to their targets, ignored by every sensor sweep. Sir, Rogers called out, excitement in his voice. First ducks making contact with enemy hulls. Suction cups holding as predicted. They're not even registering them as threats. On the main screen, Thompson watched as his fleet performed their elaborate dance of false attacks. The aliens responded with casual efficiency, swatting away Earth's ships like annoying insects. Their arrogance was perfect. They weren't even bothering to scan for smaller objects anymore. 30 minutes until first wave detonation, Rogers announced. Second and third waves are approaching target zones. The aliens broadcast again, their voice dripping with boredom. Your pathetic attempts at combat amuse us. Is this truly the best your species can offer? Perhaps we should extend your suffering to properly demonstrate your inadequacy. Thompson keyed his own broadcast channel. This is Admiral Thompson of Earth's Defense Force. We request 10 minutes to discuss surrender terms. The alien response was immediate. Now you grovel. Your time for negotiations has passed. Prepare for. Sir, Rogers interrupted. All waves are in position. First wave detonation in 10 minutes. Thompson turned to his fleet communications. All ships, execute maximum range retreat. I repeat, clear the blast zone immediately. The Earth fleet's organized attacks suddenly transformed into a full retreat. The aliens, predictably, assumed victory. They flee. The alien broadcast boomed. Behold the coordinates off. 5 minutes to detonation, Rogers called out. All ducks are attached and functional. Timers are synchronized. Thompson watched his fleet pull back to safe distance. On the tactical display, he could see the alien ships highlighted with thousands of tiny dots, each one a rubber duck stuck firmly to their hull, waiting for the signal. 1 minute, Rogers whispered. The alien commander was still gloating. Remember this moment, humans. Remember how your mightiest weapons failed, how your bravest warriors fled. Remember. 30 seconds, Rogers said. Thompson picked up a small yellow rubber duck from his console, the original one Rogers had brought to the meeting. He squeezed it once, hearing that familiar squeak. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The command center fell silent as Rogers counted down the final seconds. Nobody moved, Nobody breathed. The fate of humanity rested on their ridiculous plan. And in 3, 2, 1, nothing happened. Thompson's heart stopped. Had they failed? Had the simple timers? The tactical display suddenly blazed with thousands of tiny explosions. Like strings of firecrackers wrapped around massive ships, the rubber ducks detonated in perfect sequence. The alien shields flickered with confused energy, trying to stop attacks that were already inside their defensive barrier. What? What is this? The alien commander's voice had lost its arrogant tone, replaced by genuine confusion. Our sensors detect no weapons. How are you? Another wave of explosions cut off the transmission. The rubber ducks from the second wave were detonating now, their simple gunpowder charges creating a chain reaction across the alien fleet's hull. Damage report, Thompson demanded, leaning forward in his chair. Their shields are still up, Rogers reported, eyes glued to his screen. But they're taking heavy damage to their outer hulls. The explosions are small, but there are thousands of them, and they're hitting critical junction points. The alien fleet's perfect formation began to break. Several smaller ships were already spinning out of control, their navigation systems damaged by explosions in exactly the right places. The rubber ducks hadn't just attached randomly. They had been programmed to target specific areas of the ship's hulls. Impossible. The alien commander was back, his voice shaking with rage. You dare attack the mighty stellar empire with rubber ducks? Thompson replied calmly into his comm. You know, those primitive bath toys our children play with. We figured anything more advanced would be beneath your notice. The third wave detonated. This time, the explosions found deeper weaknesses in the damaged hulls. Secondary explosions began chain reacting through the alien fleet as their own power systems overloaded. Sir, Rogers called out. Their flagship's main reactor is destabilizing. The damage from our ducts, it's causing a cascade failure in their power grid. Thompson watched as the massive alien flagship began to break apart. Its shields were still running at full power, still protecting it from energy weapons and high-tech attacks, while simple rubber ducts filled with gunpowder tore it apart from the inside. This cannot be. The alien commander's voice was almost a shriek now. We are the stellar empire. We cannot be defeated by bath toys. Thompson finished for him. You were so busy looking for advanced weapons that you forgot something very important about humans. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution, and sometimes the dumbest idea is the most brilliant one. The command center erupted in cheers as more alien ships began to fail. Their mighty fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours ago, was being taken apart by explosions so simple that a gunsmith from the 1800s could have created them. Final wave detonating now, Rogers announced, grinning as he watched his plan succeed. The fourth wave of ducks had been aimed at the aliens' weapon systems, and as they exploded, the mighty energy weapons of the Stellar Empire fell silent. Attention, Stellar Empire forces, Thompson broadcast on all channels. This is Admiral Thompson of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is crippled. Your weapons are failing, and we have another 10 million rubber ducks ready to launch. Would you like to discuss surrender terms? The response was immediate, not from the commander this time, but from what sounded like a very shaken alien crew member. Please, no more of your terrible yellow demons. We surrender. Thompson picked up his rubber duck again and squeezed it, letting its cheerful squeak echo through the command center. The sound that had entertained children for generations had just saved humanity from extinction. Lieutenant Rogers, Thompson said, turning to the exhausted but happy officer, I believe you've just invented the most ridiculous superweapon in history. Congratulations. Rogers saluted with one hand while holding his own rubber duck in the other. Thank you, sir, but maybe we should keep a few ducks in reserve, just in case anyone else thinks we're too primitive to take seriously. The mood in the United Nations Assembly Hall was unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as they watched the live feed from space. The mighty Stellar Empire fleet, or what remained of it, hung dead in space. Pieces of their ships drifted by like fallen leaves, many still with little black rubber ducks attached to their surface. "The surrender document is ready for your review," Admiral Rogers said, handing a tablet to Thompson. They stood in a makeshift meeting room aboard the Earth Defense Force's flagship, preparing to meet the alien representatives face to face for the first time. Thompson looked at the document, then at the small rubber duck sitting on the conference table. Someone had drawn a tiny medal on it with a marker. "Make sure we include the rubber duck clause," he said with a small smile. The doors opened, and for the first time, humans saw what their enemies looked like. The alien delegation walked in, their tall, metallic-looking bodies making them seem more like living machines than organic beings. But their movements were stiff, nervous. Their silver eyes kept darting to the rubber duck on the table. "We are," the lead alien began, then stopped, as if the words physically hurt. "We are prepared to discuss terms of surrender." Thompson nodded. "Please, sit down. Would anyone like water? Coffee? A rubber duck souvenir, perhaps?" The aliens flinched at the word duck. One of them actually took a step back. "That won't be necessary," their leader said quickly. We acknowledge our defeat. The Stellar Empire has never encountered such a weapon before." Rogers couldn't help himself. "Really? Not even in your 1,000 years of conquering other species? Nobody ever thought to try something so simple it went right through your defenses?" The alien leader's metallic face somehow managed to look embarrassed. "We became focused on advancing our technology. Each new shield was designed to stop more powerful weapons. We never considered, we never thought, that someone would attack you with bath toys." Thompson finished. "Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects. Now, about those terms." He activated a holographic display showing the surrender document. The first item made the aliens visibly uncomfortable. "The Stellar Empire acknowledges their defeat by Earth's rubber duck weapons and agrees to never again underestimate primitive species or their methods." "Must we include that specific detail?" the alien leader asked weakly. "Oh yes," Thompson replied. "Every word. We want the entire galaxy to know exactly how you were defeated. It'll help remind everyone that arrogance can be a fatal weakness." As the aliens reluctantly began reviewing the document, a junior officer rushed in with an urgent message. "Sir, news is spreading across the galaxy. We're getting transmissions from 17 different species who were also bullied or threatened by the Stellar Empire. They're all asking for the same thing." "Let me guess," Rogers said with a grin. "They want rubber ducks." The officer nodded. "They're offering trade deals, technology, cultural exchanges, anything for some of our super weapons. One species offered us a small moon in exchange for 1,000 ducks." The alien delegation looked increasingly uncomfortable as Thompson laughed. "Well, it seems humanity just became the galaxy's premier arms dealer. In rubber ducks." "The truly ironic part," Rogers added, picking up the decorated duck from the table, "is that if you had just talked to us peacefully in the first place, we would have happily traded. These things cost about 50 cents to make." The alien leader's silver eyes widened. 50. You defeated our mightiest fleet with weapons that cost less than a standard food ration. Sometimes the best solutions are also the cheapest, Thompson said, standing to formally begin the surrender ceremony. "Now shall we make this official? And don't worry, we'll throw in a complimentary rubber duck with the signed documents. Consider it a reminder that peace is always better than war, and that no species has a monopoly on clever ideas." 5 years after the famous rubber duck victory, the Earth Space Center Museum opened a new wing dedicated to humanity's most unlikely military success. At its center stood a simple glass case containing the original yellow rubber duck that Lieutenant Rogers had brought to that desperate meeting. Rogers, now Admiral Rogers, stood next to Thompson at the exhibition's opening ceremony. Both men watched as groups of alien tourists took pictures with the display, many wearing t-shirts with cartoon ducks on them. "Did you ever think," Thompson asked, "that a rubber duck would become the most recognized symbol of human ingenuity across the galaxy?" Rogers shook his head, smiling as he watched a group of tall, metallic-skinned Stellar Empire children squeak toy ducks they'd bought from the gift shop. Their parents still looked slightly nervous around the toys, but the kids loved them. The latest trade report came in, Thompson continued, checking his tablet. "Would you believe we now export more rubber ducks than any other Earth product? Every species wants them, not as weapons, just as toys. They've become a symbol of thinking outside the box." The museum's main screen showed news footage from the past 5 years. The Stellar Empire, humbled by their defeat, had transformed from conquerors into peaceful traders. Other aggressive species had quickly reconsidered their expansion plans when they learned about Earth's duck strategy. Nobody wanted to risk being the next mighty empire defeated by bath toys. Admiral Rogers, a small alien child, barely reaching Rogers' waist, ran up to him holding a rubber duck. "Will you sign my duck? My parents told me you're the one who saved your planet with these." Rogers knelt down, taking the offered pen. As he signed the toy, the child's parent, a species that looked like a walking crystal, approached Thompson. "We're studying Earth's history in school," the child said excitedly. "Teacher says the duck victory changed everything." "Is it true you have a whole strategic defense program based on simple solutions now?" Thompson nodded. "The duck doctrine, we call it. Sometimes the best answer isn't the most advanced one. Your people's light-based computing helped us develop it further." The exhibition hall was filled with examples. Alongside the original rubber duck were other primitive solutions that had revolutionized space travel. A simple metal spring that could detect quantum fluctuations better than any computer. A child's spinning top that had inspired a new type of gravity drive. Earth had learned its lesson well. Sometimes the oldest, simplest ideas were the best ones. Breaking news, the hall's screens announced. The Galactic Council has approved Earth's petition for membership. In an unprecedented move, humanity has gone from an unknown species to a full council member in just 5 years. Representatives cited Earth's unique approach to problem solving as a valuable addition to galactic society. Rogers finished signing the young alien's duck, then stood back up. "Hard to believe it all started because we ran out of options and tried the dumbest idea possible." "Sometimes," Thompson said, "admitting that you're out of smart ideas is the smartest thing you can do. Being willing to try something stupid, that's a kind of wisdom too." They watched as more tourists filed in, each one stopping to take pictures with the famous rubber duck. The gift shop was doing brisk business selling replica Doom ducks, though these ones just squeaked instead of exploding. "You know what the best part is?" Rogers asked, picking up one of the toy ducks and squeaking it. "Every time some advanced species starts thinking about causing trouble, they hear that squeaking sound and remember, never underestimate a species willing to try something ridiculous." Thompson laughed. "We should put that on Earth's flag. Humanity, taking dumb ideas seriously since forever." "Actually," Rogers said, checking his own tablet, "the Galactic Council already approved our official species motto. Would you like to hear it?" "Go on." Rogers cleared his throat and read, "Humanity. Sometimes the silliest solution is the best solution." And somewhere in the museum gift shop, 1,000 rubber ducks squeaked in agreement.